Birds, they rule the skies. They sing the songs that wake us every morning. They migrate thousands of miles across oceans and continents without a map, without a compass, guided by something deep within their bones and blood. They have survived mass extinctions, ice ages, and the rise and fall of civilizations. They are dinosaurs that never died. They are engineers, architects, dancers, thieves, and poets of the natural world. And today we are going to uncover 100 extraordinary facts about them, facts that will change the way you look at every feathered creature you ever see again. Please let us know in the comments where you are watching this video and what time you are watching it, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for future videos. Now let us begin. When you look up at a bird soaring overhead, you are looking at the last living descendant of the dinosaurs. That is not poetry. That is not metaphor. That is cold, hard, scientific fact. Birds are theropod dinosaurs. They belong to the same group of creatures that included the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex, the cunning velociraptor, and countless other predators that once dominated the planet. Around 66 million years ago, an asteroid struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, and in the catastrophic aftermath, roughly 75% of all life on Earth was annihilated. The non-avian dinosaurs vanished. But a small lineage of feathered, warm-blooded, flight-capable creatures survived. They endured, they adapted, they diversified, and over millions of years they became the birds we know today. Every sparrow on your windowsill, every eagle circling a mountaintop, every penguin sliding across Antarctic ice carries within it the legacy of the most fearsome creatures this planet has ever known. The next time a pigeon struts past you on a sidewalk, remember, you are in the presence of a dinosaur. And speaking of feathers, let us talk about what makes birds truly unique in the animal kingdom. Feathers. No other living animal has true feathers. Mammals have fur, reptiles have scales, insects have exoskeletons, but feathers belong to birds alone, and feathers are not simple structures. A single flight feather is an engineering masterpiece. It has a central shaft called a rachis, from which hundreds of barbs branch out on either side. Each barb has smaller branches called barbules, and those barbules have tiny hooks called barbicels that interlock with neighboring barbules, creating a smooth, aerodynamic surface. If those hooks come apart, the bird simply preens the feather with its beak, zipping the structure back together like a biological zipper. A single bird can have anywhere from a few hundred to more than 25,000 feathers on its body, depending on the species and the season. The tundra swan, for instance, holds the record with an estimated 25,216 feathers counted on a single individual. Every one of those feathers serves a purpose: insulation, waterproofing, flight, display, camouflage, or sensory input. But feathers are not just tools for survival. They are also canvases for some of the most spectacular displays of color in the natural world. The iridescent throat of a hummingbird, the shimmering tail of a peacock, the brilliant blue of an indigo bunting, these colors dazzle us, and many of them are not produced by pigments at all. Structural coloration is one of the great marvels of avian biology. The microscopic structure of certain feathers is arranged in such a way that it interferes with light waves, amplifying certain wavelengths and canceling others. This is why the throat of a hummingbird can flash from emerald green to fiery red depending on the angle of view. The color is not in the feather itself. The color is in the light. It is physics masquerading as beauty. Blue jays, for instance, have no blue pigment in their feathers whatsoever. If you were to crush a blue jay feather, the resulting powder would be brown or gray. The blue exists only because of the way the feather's nanostructure scatters light. It is an illusion, but an utterly convincing one. Now, while we marvel at color, let us consider something even more fundamental about birds: their bones. Birds fly, and flight demands that the body be as light as possible while remaining strong enough to withstand the tremendous forces generated by flapping wings. To achieve this, most birds have hollow bones. These bones are not empty, however. They are reinforced internally with a network of crisscrossing struts called trabeculae, very similar in principle to the trusses used in bridge construction. This gives the bones remarkable strength relative to their weight. In fact, the skeleton of a frigate bird, which has a wingspan of over 2 meters, weighs less than its feathers. The entire skeleton of this magnificent seabird weighs roughly 114 grams, less than a quarter of a pound. Some of these hollow bones are even connected to the bird's respiratory system, with air sacs extending into them. This means that when a bird breathes, air flows through some of its bones. It is an astonishing adaptation, and it is one of many reasons why birds are such supremely efficient flying machines. Flight itself is a phenomenon that deserves careful attention. When a bird flaps its wings, it is not simply pushing air downward. The mechanics of avian flight are far more complex. On the downstroke, the wing generates both lift and thrust. On the upstroke, many birds partially fold their wings to reduce drag. The primary feathers at the wingtips twist and separate, functioning almost like the individual blades of a propeller. Each wing beat is a precisely coordinated movement involving dozens of muscles, tendons, and joints, and the speed of these wing beats varies enormously across species. A large albatross may flap its wings only once every several seconds, relying mainly on dynamic soaring to travel vast distances over the ocean. A hummingbird, on the other hand, beats its wings up to 80 times per second, so fast that human eyes cannot follow the individual strokes. This extraordinary wing speed allows hummingbirds to hover in place, fly backward, and even fly upside down for brief moments. No other bird can match this level of aerial agility. The peregrine falcon, meanwhile, holds the title of the fastest animal on the planet. When this raptor spots prey from high above, it folds its wings close to its body and enters a controlled dive called a stoop. During this dive, the peregrine falcon has been recorded reaching speeds in excess of 389 kilometers per hour, that is over 240 miles per hour. To put that in perspective, that is faster than most high-speed trains. At these velocities, the air pressure could easily damage the bird's lungs, but the peregrine falcon has evolved bony tubercles in its nostrils that disrupt incoming airflow, allowing the bird to breathe even during the most extreme dives. Its eyes are protected by a third eyelid called a nictitating membrane, which acts like a biological pair of goggles, keeping the eyes moist and shielded from debris. Every aspect of the peregrine falcon's body has been honed by millions of years of evolution for one purpose: speed. But not all birds are built for speed. Some are built for endurance. The bar-tailed Godwit undertakes the longest nonstop flight of any bird on Earth. Every autumn, these shorebirds leave their breeding grounds in Alaska and fly south across the Pacific Ocean to New Zealand, a journey of approximately 11,000 kilometers, or about 7,000 miles, completed without a single stop for food, water, or rest. They fly for 8 to 10 days straight, burning through their fat reserves and even absorbing parts of their own internal organs to fuel the journey. Their intestines and kidneys actually shrink before migration to reduce weight and then regenerate after they arrive at their destination. It is one of the most extraordinary feats of endurance in the entire animal kingdom, and it happens every single year, performed by birds that weigh less than a pound. Migration itself is a phenomenon that has captivated scientists for centuries. How do birds navigate across thousands of miles of open ocean, featureless desert, and unfamiliar terrain? The answer is that they use multiple navigation systems simultaneously. Birds can detect the Earth's magnetic field using specialized cells containing tiny crystals of magnetite, an iron-rich mineral. These magnetoreceptors may be located in the bird's beak, inner ear, or even its eyes. Some research suggests that certain birds can literally see the magnetic field as a visual overlay on their normal vision, thanks to a protein called cryptochrome found in their retinas. In addition to magnetoreception, birds navigate using the position of the sun during the day, the patterns of stars at night, and even familiar landmarks, coastlines, rivers, and mountain ranges. Young birds on their first migration may rely primarily on innate compass directions encoded in their genes, while experienced adults build detailed mental maps of their routes over successive journeys. It is a multi-layered, redundant navigation system of breathtaking sophistication. And migration is not limited to small songbirds and shorebirds. The Arctic tern holds the record for the longest annual migration of any animal. This small seabird breeds in the Arctic during the northern summer, then flies all the way to the Antarctic for the southern summer, and then flies back again. Over the course of a single year, an Arctic tern may travel more than 70,000 kilometers, roughly 44,000 miles. Over its lifetime, which can span 30 years or more, a single Arctic tern may fly a distance equivalent to 3 round trips to the moon. And because it spends its life chasing summer, the Arctic tern sees more daylight than any other creature on the planet. Now let us shift our gaze from the skies to the forests, where some of the most remarkable examples of avian intelligence can be found. For decades, the phrase bird brain was used as an insult, implying stupidity and simplicity. But modern research has shattered that prejudice entirely. Birds, particularly corvids, the family that includes crows, ravens, jays, and magpies, are among the most intelligent animals on Earth. New Caledonian crows, found on a small island in the South Pacific, are accomplished toolmakers. They fashion hooks out of twigs to extract grubs from holes in wood. They trim and shape pandanus leaves into serrated tools with specific designs. They have been observed in laboratory settings, bending straight pieces of wire into hooks to retrieve food from containers, a behavior that requires understanding of cause and effect, planning, and innovation. In one famous experiment, a New Caledonian crow named Betty spontaneously bent a piece of wire into a hook on her very first attempt, with no prior training or demonstration. She simply looked at the problem, assessed the situation, and invented a solution. Crows and ravens also demonstrate an understanding of displacement, future planning, and even social deception. Ravens have been observed caching food in hidden locations, and then returning later to move the food to a new hiding spot if they noticed another raven watching them during the initial caching. This implies that the raven understands what the other bird saw, can predict what the other bird might do with that information, and takes preemptive action to protect its resources. This capacity, called theory of mind, was once thought to be unique to humans and perhaps great apes. Finding it in birds has forced scientists to fundamentally rethink the nature of animal intelligence, but corvids are not the only brainy birds. Parrots, too, display remarkable cognitive abilities. The African gray parrot named Alex, who was studied for 30 years by scientist Irene Pepperberg, learned to identify over 50 objects, 7 colors, 5 shapes, and quantities up to 6. He could answer questions about the properties of objects, such as their color, shape, and material. He understood concepts like same and different, bigger and smaller. When shown a tray of objects and asked, "What color is the square?" he could correctly identify the color of a square object among objects of various shapes and colors. He was not simply mimicking sounds. He was demonstrating genuine comprehension and the ability to use language referentially. When Alex died unexpectedly in 2007 at the age of 31, his last words to Pepperberg were, "You be good, I love you." Whether those words carried the emotional weight that humans would attach to them remains debated, but the cognitive achievement they represented was undeniable. Let us now talk about a behavior that many people associate most closely with birds singing. Birdsong is one of the most complex and beautiful sounds produced by any animal, but it is also far more than just pleasant background noise. Birdsong serves critical biological functions. Male birds sing primarily to defend territories and attract mates. The quality, complexity, and volume of a male's song can signal his health, genetic fitness, age, and experience to listening females. In many species, females preferentially mate with males that sing more complex or varied songs, driving the evolution of ever more elaborate vocal performances. The mechanics of birdsong are also fascinating. Unlike humans, who produce sound using a larynx with 2 vocal cords, birds produce sound using a unique organ called a syrinx, located at the junction where the trachea splits into the 2 bronchi leading to the lungs. The syrinx has 2 independent sound sources, one on each side, which can be controlled separately. This means that a bird can literally sing 2 different notes at the same time, producing harmonies with itself. The wood thrush, for example, produces its hauntingly beautiful flute-like song by generating two simultaneous tones from the two sides of its syrinx, creating complex harmonic interactions that give the song its ethereal quality. No human singer, no matter how gifted, can do this without technological assistance. Some birds are extraordinary mimics, capable of reproducing not just the songs of other bird species, but also mechanical sounds, human speech, and environmental noises. The superb lyrebird of southeastern Australia is perhaps the most impressive mimic in the avian world. Male lyrebirds have been recorded imitating the calls of over 20 different bird species, as well as the sounds of chainsaws, camera shutters, car alarms, barking dogs, crying babies, and even the musical notes of flutes. Their mimicry is so accurate that other birds, and sometimes even humans, cannot distinguish the imitation from the original. The male lyrebird performs these vocal feats during an elaborate courtship display, spreading his magnificent tail feathers into a shimmering canopy while dancing and singing on a carefully constructed mound of soil. The northern mockingbird is another accomplished mimic, capable of learning and reproducing over 200 different songs during its lifetime. A male mockingbird's repertoire continues to grow as he ages, and older males with larger repertoires are preferred by females. The mockingbird sings almost continuously during the breeding season, often well into the night, cycling through its vast catalog of borrowed songs with astonishing speed and accuracy. But not all bird vocalizations are songs. Many birds communicate using a variety of calls, short, simple vocalizations that serve specific functions such as alarm calls, contact calls, begging calls, and flight calls. Some alarm call systems are remarkably sophisticated. Black-capped chickadees, for example, have a complex alarm call system that encodes information about the type and degree of threat. When a chickadee encounters a predator, it produces its characteristic chick, a DDD call. The number of D notes at the end of the call varies depending on the size and danger level of the predator. Small, agile predators like pygmy owls, which pose the greatest threat to chickadees, elicit calls with the most D notes, while larger, less maneuverable predators elicit fewer. Other chickadees hearing these calls respond appropriately, mobbing the predator more aggressively when the call indicates a greater threat. This is, in effect, a rudimentary language, a system of vocalizations with encoded meaning that is understood and acted upon by listeners. Japanese great tits have been shown to combine different call elements into sequences that convey compound meanings, similar to the way human language uses syntax. When researchers played back calls with the elements rearranged in an unnatural order, the birds failed to respond appropriately, suggesting that the order of the elements matters, just as in human sentences. This discovery has profound implications for our understanding of the evolution of language, suggesting that the building blocks of syntax may have far deeper evolutionary roots than previously thought. Now let us leave the world of sound and enter the world of sight, because birds see the world in ways that are profoundly different from how we see it. Most birds have 4 types of color detecting cone cells in their retinas, compared to just 3 in humans. This 4th cone type is sensitive to ultraviolet light, which is invisible to the human eye. This means that birds perceive a world of color that is richer and more varied than anything we can imagine. Flowers that appear plain white to our eyes may display vivid ultraviolet patterns visible to pollinating birds. Plumage that looks dull or unremarkable to us may blaze with ultraviolet brilliance to another bird. When we look at a male blue tit and see a pleasant but modest bird, another blue tit sees a creature adorned with patches of intense ultraviolet color that signal vitality and genetic quality. We are, in a very real sense, seeing only a faded, washed-out version of the world that birds inhabit. The visual acuity of many birds is also far superior to our own. Birds of prey, in particular, have exceptionally sharp vision. A wedge-tailed eagle can spot a rabbit from a distance of nearly 2 kilometers. This extraordinary acuity is due in part to the density of photoreceptor cells in the raptor's retina. The fovea, the central area of sharpest vision in the retina, of a large eagle may contain approximately 1 million cone cells per square millimeter, compared to roughly 200,000 in the human fovea. Many raptors also have two foveae in each eye, one for forward binocular vision and one for lateral monocular vision, giving them the ability to track prey with razor-sharp focus while simultaneously scanning the surrounding landscape for threats or opportunities. The eyes of an ostrich deserve special mention. They are the largest eyes of any land animal, measuring nearly 5 centimeters, about 2 inches in diameter. They are larger than the ostrich's brain. These enormous eyes give the ostrich superb long-distance vision across the flat, open landscapes of the African savanna, where early detection of predators is essential for survival. Owls, of course, are famous for their large, forward-facing eyes, which give them excellent binocular vision and depth perception in low-light conditions. The eyes of a great horned owl are so large that they cannot move in their sockets. Instead, the owl must turn its entire head to look in different directions. To compensate for this limitation, owls have evolved an extraordinary ability to rotate their heads up to 270 degrees, 3/4 of a full circle. They accomplish this through a series of remarkable anatomical adaptations, including extracervical vertebrae, blood vessels with special reservoirs that maintain blood flow to the brain during rotation, and a skeletal structure that prevents the arteries from being pinched off during extreme head turns. While we are discussing senses, let us touch upon hearing, because some birds have auditory abilities that are truly extraordinary. The barn owl is perhaps the supreme auditory hunter in the bird world. Its facial disc, the distinctive heart-shaped arrangement of feathers around its face, functions as a parabolic reflector, channeling sound waves toward its ears with remarkable precision. The ears of a barn owl are asymmetrically positioned on its skull, with one ear slightly higher than the other. This asymmetry allows the owl to determine the vertical position of a sound source as well as its horizontal location, creating a three-dimensional sound map of its environment. A barn owl can locate and capture a mouse in complete darkness, guided entirely by the faint rustling sounds of its prey moving through dry leaves or grass. In laboratory experiments, barn owls have successfully struck at targets producing sounds as faint as the rustle of a single leaf, with positional accuracy of less than 2 degrees in both the horizontal and vertical planes. The oilbird of South America and certain species of cave swiftlets in Southeast Asia have independently evolved the ability to echolocate, the same sonar-like navigation system used by bats and dolphins. These birds produce rapid clicking sounds and listen for the echoes bouncing off cave walls, obstacles, and other surfaces, allowing them to navigate through the pitch-black interiors of caves where they roost and nest. While avian echolocation is not as refined as that of bats, it is nonetheless an impressive adaptation, and it underscores the remarkable versatility of birds in exploiting different sensory channels to meet the challenges of their environments. Let us now consider the sense of smell, which for a long time was thought to be poorly developed or even absent in most birds. This assumption has been thoroughly overturned by modern research. Many birds have a well-developed sense of smell and use it for a variety of purposes. Tube-nosed seabirds such as albatrosses, petrels, and shearwaters have exceptionally large olfactory bulbs in their brains and use smell to locate food sources over vast stretches of open ocean. They can detect the scent of dimethyl sulfide, a chemical released by phytoplankton when it is consumed by krill and small fish. This scent acts like a dinner bell, guiding the seabirds to productive feeding areas from distances of many kilometers. The kiwi, a flightless bird from New Zealand, has its nostrils located at the very tip of its long bill, unique among birds. It probes the soil and leaf litter with this bill, sniffing out earthworms, grubs, and other invertebrates hidden beneath the surface. The kiwi's reliance on smell over sight reflects its nocturnal lifestyle and the dense, dark forest floors it inhabits. Turkey vultures are famous for their ability to locate carrion by smell. They soar on thermals with their wings held in a characteristic shallow V shape, riding low over the landscape and sniffing for the scent of ethyl mercaptan, a gas released by decaying flesh. Their sense of smell is so reliable that pipeline engineers have historically used turkey vultures to locate leaks in natural gas pipelines. The gas companies would add ethyl mercaptan to the gas and then watch for circling vultures, which would congregate above the leak sites. Now from the senses, let us turn to the extraordinary diversity of bird nests, because the ways in which birds build their homes reveal an astonishing range of architectural ingenuity. The simplest nests are little more than scrapes in the ground, shallow depressions in sand or soil where eggs are laid directly on the surface. Many shorebirds, terns, and nightjars use this strategy, relying on the camouflage coloring of their eggs and their own plumage to avoid detection by predators. At the other extreme are the elaborately woven nests of the weaverbirds of Africa and Asia. Male weaverbirds construct intricate, pendant-shaped nests by tearing strips from grass blades and palm fronds and weaving them into tightly knit, gourd-shaped structures that hang from the tips of branches. The male builds the nest as a display to attract females. A female will inspect the nest carefully, testing its strength and construction quality by tugging at the fibers and examining the entrance. If she finds the nest satisfactory, she will accept the male as a mate and line the interior with soft materials before laying her eggs. If the nest fails to meet her standards, she will reject it, and the male must tear it down and start over. In some weaverbird colonies, a male may build and dismantle dozens of nests in a single breeding season before finally attracting a mate. The sociable weaver of southern Africa takes nest building to an entirely different level. These small, sparrow-sized birds construct enormous communal structures in trees or on telephone poles, massive, haystack-like apartment complexes that can be over 6 meters long, 2 meters high, and weigh more than a ton. A single structure may contain over 100 individual nest chambers, each occupied by a breeding pair. The thick thatched roof provides insulation against the scorching daytime heat and the freezing nighttime temperatures of the Kalahari Desert. Internal chambers near the center of the structure maintain remarkably stable temperatures, varying by only a few degrees even as external temperatures swing wildly. These nests are maintained and expanded over many generations, with some structures estimated to be over a century old. They are the largest structures built by any bird species, and they represent one of the most impressive examples of cooperative construction in the animal kingdom. The bowerbird of Australia and New Guinea does not build a nest for shelter, but rather constructs an elaborate structure called a bower purely for the purpose of courtship. Male bowerbirds build bowers of various designs depending on the species. Some build avenue-shaped corridors of sticks, while others construct towering maypole structures decorated with moss, ferns, and orchids. The male then decorates his bower with a carefully curated collection of colorful objects: berries, flowers, beetle shells, feathers, pebbles, and even human-made items like bottle caps, pieces of glass, and plastic straws. Satin bowerbirds have a particular preference for blue objects and will collect anything blue they can find. The male arranges these objects with meticulous care, adjusting their placement repeatedly and removing any object that does not meet his aesthetic standards. When a female arrives to inspect the bower, the male performs an energetic dance, vocalizing and displaying his plumage while the female examines his construction. Research has shown that females prefer males with more elaborate bowers and more extensive collections of decorations, and that the quality of the bower is a reliable indicator of the male's overall cognitive ability and health. Tailorbirds, found across Asia, create their nests by literally sewing leaves together. Using their sharp, slender bills as needles, they punch holes along the edges of one or more large leaves and then pull plant fibers or spider silk through the holes, drawing the edges of the leaves together to form a cradle or pouch. The bird then builds a small cup-shaped nest of soft materials inside this living green envelope. The result is a remarkably well-camouflaged and protected nest, hidden among the foliage of the tree. The malleefowl of Australia has one of the most unusual nesting strategies of any bird. Rather than incubating its eggs with its body heat, the the malleefowl constructs a massive mound of decomposing vegetation and sand, essentially creating a compost heap that generates heat through microbial activity. The male maintains this mound throughout the breeding season, constantly testing the temperature by inserting his beak into the material and adding or removing sand to keep the internal temperature at a remarkably precise 33 degrees Celsius. If the mound is too hot, he opens vents to release heat. If it is too cool, he adds more insulating sand. He tends this living incubator for months, and the chicks, when they finally hatch, dig their own way out of the mound and are immediately independent, receiving no parental care whatsoever. The entire process, from mound construction to the last chick's emergence, can span nearly 11 months. The edible nest swiftlet of Southeast Asia builds its nest almost entirely from its own saliva. The male secretes long, thin strands of sticky saliva from enlarged salivary glands and uses these strands to construct a small, cup-shaped nest attached to the wall of a cave. The saliva hardens upon exposure to air, forming a translucent, gelatinous structure. These nests are the key ingredient in bird's nest soup, a delicacy in Chinese cuisine that has been prized for centuries for its supposed health benefits. The demand for these nests has driven a lucrative and sometimes dangerous harvesting industry, with collectors scaling the walls of caves using bamboo poles and ladders to reach nests attached to ceilings dozens of meters above the cave floor. Now, from nests, let us move to eggs, because bird eggs are themselves marvels of biological engineering. The eggshell, which appears simple and fragile, is actually a highly sophisticated structure. It is composed primarily of calcium carbonate crystals arranged in a complex matrix that provides strength while remaining thin enough for gas exchange. The developing embryo inside needs oxygen and must expel carbon dioxide. The shell is perforated by thousands of microscopic pores that allow this gas exchange to occur. The number, size, and distribution of these pores vary between species and are precisely calibrated to the environmental conditions in which the egg will be incubated. Eggs laid in humid environments tend to have fewer pores to prevent excessive water loss, while eggs incubated in dry conditions have more. The color and patterning of bird eggs are equally fascinating. Eggshell coloration is produced by just two pigments, biliverdin, which creates blue and green tones, and protoporphyrin, which creates red and brown tones. From these two pigments alone, the astounding diversity of egg colors and patterns found across all bird species is generated. The robin's iconic blue egg, the speckled brown egg of a plover, the pure white egg of an owl, the intricately scrawled markings on a guillemot's egg, all are variations on a theme built from just two chemical compounds. The specific patterns are often laid down in the final hours before the egg is laid, as the egg rotates through the oviduct and pigment-secreting glands paint their designs onto the still wet shell surface. The swirling lines on a guillemot egg are literally drawn by the egg's own rotation. The eggs of the common murre or guillemot deserve special attention. These seabirds nest on narrow cliff ledges without building any nest at all. The egg is laid directly on bare rock. To prevent the egg from rolling off the ledge, it has evolved a dramatically piriform or pear-shaped form. When disturbed, a piriform egg does not roll in a straight line toward the edge. Instead, it pivots around its narrow end, tracing a tight arc that keeps it on the ledge. This elegant geometric solution to a deadly problem is a beautiful example of natural selection at work. The smallest bird egg belongs to the bee hummingbird of Cuba, the smallest bird in the world. Its egg is roughly the size of a coffee bean, measuring about 6 millimeters in length and weighing approximately half a gram. The largest egg ever laid by a bird belonged to the elephant bird of Madagascar, a giant flightless bird that went extinct several hundred years ago. Elephant bird eggs were roughly 30 centimeters long, about a foot, and could hold the contents of approximately 150 chicken eggs. Even today, intact or partially intact elephant bird eggs are occasionally found in the sands of Madagascar, ghostly remnants of a vanished giant. The ostrich lays the largest egg of any living bird, weighing up to 1.4 kilograms, about 3 pounds. Despite its impressive size, the ostrich egg is actually the smallest egg relative to the body size of the parent. An ostrich weighs roughly 100 kilograms, and its egg represents only about 1 to 2% of its body weight. The kiwi, by contrast, lays the largest egg relative to its body size of any bird. A female kiwi weighing roughly 2 to 3 kilograms produces an egg that can weigh up to 450 grams, nearly 20% of her body weight. Proportionally, this would be like a human woman giving birth to a 4-year-old child. X-ray images of a kiwi just before egg laying show the enormous egg filling almost the entire abdominal cavity, compressing the internal organs into a tiny space. How and why the kiwi evolved to produce such a disproportionately large egg remains one of the intriguing puzzles of avian biology. Let us now consider some of the most extraordinary physical adaptations found in specific bird species. The sword-billed hummingbird of South America has a bill that is longer than its entire body, excluding its tail. This absurdly elongated bill is an adaptation for feeding from deep, tubular flowers that other hummingbirds cannot reach. Because the bill is so long, the sword-billed hummingbird cannot use it to preen its own feathers and must instead use its feet for grooming, an unusual behavior among hummingbirds. The shoebill stork of the wetlands of Central and Eastern Africa has one of the most distinctive bills of any bird, a massive, shoe-shaped structure that gives the bird its name. This formidable bill is used to catch large fish, lungfish, and even small crocodiles, which the shoebill seizes with a sudden, violent lunge into the water. The shoebill is also known for its unsettling habit of standing motionless for long periods, staring with intense, unblinking yellow eyes, a hunting strategy that relies on patience and stealth rather than pursuit. The flamingo feeds in a manner unlike any other bird. It lowers its head upside down into shallow water and uses its uniquely shaped bill as a filter, pumping water and mud through comb-like structures called lamellae that line the bill's edges. These lamellae trap tiny organisms, brine shrimp, algae, and insect larvae, while expelling water and sediment. The flamingo's tongue pumps water in and out of the bill at a rate of up to 20 times per second, making it one of the most efficient filter-feeding mechanisms in the animal kingdom. The pink color of a flamingo's feathers comes directly from the carotenoid pigments in the organisms it eats, particularly brine shrimp and blue-green algae. A flamingo deprived of these pigments gradually fades to white. The woodpecker is a bird that makes its living by hammering its bill into solid wood with tremendous force, sometimes striking at a rate of 20 times per second and at impact decelerations exceeding 1,000 times the force of gravity. Any other animal subjected to such forces would suffer catastrophic brain injury, but the woodpecker has evolved a suite of protective adaptations. Its skull is composed of dense but spongy bone that absorbs shock. Its brain is tightly packed within the skull, with very little cerebrospinal fluid, minimizing the brain's ability to move and collide with the skull walls during impact. A sheet of cartilage at the base of the bill acts as a shock absorber, and the hyoid bone, a structure that supports the tongue, wraps around the entire skull like a seat belt, providing additional cushioning and support. The woodpecker's tongue itself is another marvel. In many species, the tongue is extraordinarily long. In the green woodpecker, it can extend up to 10 centimeters beyond the tip of the bill and is barbed and coated with sticky saliva to extract insects from deep within wood tunnels. The pelican's throat pouch is an iconic feature, but few people realize just how functional it is. The pouch, made of stretchy skin that extends from the lower mandible, can hold up to 11 liters of water, roughly 3 gallons. The pelican uses this pouch as a fishing net, plunging its bill into the water and scooping up fish along with a large volume of water. It then drains the water by tilting its head and contracting the pouch before swallowing the fish whole. Brown pelicans are the only pelican species that dive from the air to catch fish, plunging headfirst into the water from heights of up to 20 meters. Their bodies are equipped with subcutaneous air sacs that cushion the impact of these high-speed dives. The Hoatzin of South America is one of the strangest birds alive today. Found in the swamps and flooded forests of the Amazon basin, The Hoatzin is the only bird known to use bacterial fermentation to digest its food, much like a cow. It feeds primarily on leaves and has an enormous muscular crop, an enlargement of the esophagus that functions as a fermentation chamber. Bacteria in the crop break down the cellulose in the leaves, releasing nutrients that the bird can absorb. This fermentation process produces a foul smell, earning the Hoatzin the nickname stinkbird. The Hoatzin also has another unusual feature. Its chicks are born with functional claws on their wings. If a nest is threatened by a predator, the chick will drop from the tree into the water below, swim to the bank, and then climb back up to the nest using its wing claws and feet. This remarkable adaptation has been compared to Archaeopteryx, the ancient feathered dinosaur that also had clawed wings, though the Hoatzin is not closely related to Archaeopteryx. The Frigatebird possesses the largest wing area to body weight ratio of any bird, giving it an almost effortless ability to soar. Frigatebirds can stay aloft for weeks at a time, sleeping on the wing by shutting down one half of their brain at a time, a phenomenon called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep. Radar tracking studies have shown that great frigatebirds can soar continuously for up to 2 months over the open ocean without landing. They ride thermals and convective updrafts, spiraling upward to altitudes of over 4,000 meters before gliding slowly downward, covering vast distances with almost no energy expenditure. Their bones are so light and their wings so long that they are virtually unable to take off from flat ground or water. If a frigatebird is forced down onto the ocean's surface, it may become waterlogged and drown because, unlike most seabirds, its feathers are not waterproof. This vulnerability makes the frigatebird's aerial endurance not just impressive but essential for survival. The albatross is another master of effortless flight. The wandering albatross has the longest wingspan of any living bird, reaching up to 3.7 meters, over 12 feet. Using a technique called dynamic soaring, the albatross exploits the wind gradient above ocean waves, alternately climbing into the wind to gain altitude and then turning and gliding downhill with the wind to gain speed. By repeating this cycle, the albatross can travel hundreds of kilometers per day with almost no wing flapping. Some albatrosses circumnavigate the entire Southern Ocean multiple times during a single non-breeding period, covering tens of thousands of kilometers while barely expending more energy than they would standing still. The heart rate of a soaring albatross is barely above its resting rate, indicating just how efficient this form of locomotion is. But the albatross is also a symbol of one of the great conservation challenges facing seabirds today. Longline fishing, a commercial fishing method that deploys lines up to 100 kilometers long, baited with thousands of hooks, kills an estimated 100,000 albatrosses every year. The birds dive for the baited hooks as the lines are being set, become hooked, and drown. This unsustainable mortality rate has driven several albatross species to the brink of extinction. Conservation efforts, including the use of bird-scaring lines and weighted hooks that sink quickly below the surface before birds can reach them, have shown promising results, but the problem remains severe. Let us now consider some of the more unusual behaviors exhibited by birds around the world. The honeyguide, a small bird found in Africa, has evolved one of the most remarkable interspecies relationships known to science. The greater honeyguide actively leads humans to wild bee colonies by flying ahead of them, calling persistently and perching conspicuously until the human follows. Once the human has opened the hive and taken the honeyguide feeds on the beeswax and bee larvae left behind. This mutualistic relationship has been documented for centuries and is still practiced today by honey hunting communities in parts of eastern and southern Africa. Research has shown that honeyguides respond to specific calls made by human honey hunters, and that following a honeyguide significantly increases the probability of finding a bee colony compared to searching without the bird's guidance. What makes this relationship even more extraordinary is that it appears to be a learned cultural tradition on both sides. Human communities teach their children the specific calls used to recruit honeyguides, and young honeyguides likely learn the behavior from observing older birds. The burrowing owl of the western grasslands nests underground, often taking over abandoned burrows dug by prairie dogs, ground squirrels, or tortoises. But the burrowing owl adds its own personal touch to its home. It collects animal dung and scatters it around the entrance to its burrow. For many years, this behavior puzzled researchers. Why would a bird deliberately surround its home with feces? The answer turned out to be surprisingly clever. The dung attracts dung beetles and other insects, which the owl then captures and eats. The owl is, in effect, baiting a trap, using animal waste as a lure to draw prey directly to its doorstep. The Egyptian vulture is one of the very few birds known to use tools in the wild. When confronted with an ostrich egg, which is far too large and thick-shelled for the vulture to crack with its beak alone, the Egyptian vulture picks up a stone in its bill and hurls it at the egg repeatedly until the shell breaks. This behavior has been documented in multiple populations across Africa, and young vultures appear to learn the technique through trial and error, sometimes spending considerable time practicing before mastering the skill. Anting is a widespread but still somewhat mysterious behavior observed in many bird species. A bird engaging in anting will pick up an ant in its bill and rub it vigorously through its feathers, or alternatively will sit on an ant mound and allow the ants to crawl through its plumage. The ants, when disturbed, release formic acid and other defensive chemicals. The prevailing hypothesis is that these chemicals act as natural insecticides or fungicides, helping to kill or repel feather parasites such as lice and mites. Over 200 bird species have been documented engaging in anting behavior, and some birds have been observed substituting other pungent substances, mothballs, cigarette butts, citrus peels, in place of ants, suggesting that it is the chemical properties of the material, not the ant itself, that the bird is seeking. The practice of cooperative breeding is found in many bird species and represents a fascinating departure from the typical avian reproductive model. In species like the Florida scrub jay, the superb fairy wren of Australia, and the red-cockaded woodpecker, young birds from previous breeding seasons remain with their parents and help raise the next generation of chicks, rather than immediately setting out to breed on their own. These helpers assist with nest building, incubation, feeding nestlings, and defending the territory from predators. In some species, the presence of helpers significantly increases the survival rate of the chicks. The evolutionary logic behind cooperative breeding is complex, but it often involves a combination of kin selection. Helping relatives who share your genes increases the probability that those shared genes will be passed on, and ecological constraints, suitable breeding territories, or mates may be scarce, making it more advantageous to stay and help than to strike out alone with little chance of success. The European cuckoo is perhaps the most famous example of brood parasitism, the strategy of laying eggs in the nests of other species and leaving the host parents to raise the cuckoo's offspring. The female cuckoo is a master of stealth and deception. She watches a host species, typically a small songbird such as a reed warbler, meadow pipit, or dunnock, and waits for the host to leave the nest briefly. In that narrow window, the cuckoo swoops in, removes one of the host's eggs, and lays her own egg in its place. The entire process takes just a few seconds. The cuckoo egg is remarkably similar in size, color, and patterning to the host's eggs, a result of millions of years of coevolution between the cuckoo and its host species. When the cuckoo chick hatches, typically before the host's own eggs, it instinctively pushes the remaining eggs out of the nest, ensuring that it receives all of the host parents' food and attention. The host parents, seemingly oblivious to the deception, work tirelessly to feed the growing cuckoo chick, which may eventually outweigh them several times over. The sight of a tiny reed warbler stretching to stuff food into the gaping maw of an enormous cuckoo chick is one of the most striking and disturbing images in all of natural history. But host species are not entirely helpless against brood parasites. Many have evolved countermeasures. Some species have become remarkably adept at recognizing and rejecting foreign eggs, ejecting them from the nest or abandoning a parasitized nest entirely and starting over. This has in turn driven cuckoos to evolve ever more convincing egg mimicry, creating an ongoing evolutionary arms race between parasite and host that has played out over millions of years. Let us now turn to the question of bird longevity, because many people are surprised to learn how long some birds can live. The general rule in biology is that larger animals tend to live longer than smaller ones. But birds consistently defy this rule, living far longer than similarly sized mammals. A house mouse might live 2 to 3 years. A similarly sized bird, say, a chickadee, can live over 12 years. The reasons for this exceptional longevity are still being researched, but they likely involve birds' high metabolic efficiency, their ability to avoid predators through flight, and cellular mechanisms that protect against the accumulation of oxidative damage. Some seabirds achieve truly remarkable lifespans. The Laysan albatross named Wisdom, who nests at Midway Atoll in the North Pacific, is the oldest known wild bird in the world. She was first banded in 1956 when she was estimated to be at least 5 years old. As of recent years, she was still alive and actively breeding, making her over 70 years old. She has raised over 30 chicks during her lifetime and has flown an estimated 3 million miles, enough to fly from Earth to the Moon and back 6 times. Wisdom is not just a remarkable individual, she is a testament to the resilience and endurance of her species. Parrots are also renowned for their longevity. Large parrot species such as macaws and cockatoos can live 50 to 80 years in captivity, and some individuals have reportedly exceeded 100 years, though these extreme claims are often difficult to verify. Even in the wild, cockatoos and macaws routinely live 30 to 40 years or more. This exceptional lifespan is thought to be related to their high intelligence, strong social bonds, and relatively low predation rates. The phenomenon of sleep in birds presents its own set of fascinating details. As mentioned briefly with the Frigatebird, many birds are capable of unihemispheric slow-wave sleep, sleeping with one half of the brain at a time while the other half remains alert. This allows birds to rest while maintaining vigilance against predators. Ducks sleeping at the edge of a group have been observed keeping the eye facing outward open and the corresponding brain hemisphere awake, while the inward-facing eye is closed and that hemisphere sleeps. This directional vigilance is a remarkably precise adaptation. Some migratory birds may be able to sleep during flight. The alpine swift has been tracked flying continuously for over 200 days without landing, a journey of approximately 10,000 kilometers over West Africa. During this time, the bird must be sleeping on the wing, likely using unihemispheric sleep to maintain flight while resting parts of its brain. The common swift, a related species, is similarly capable of extraordinary aerial endurance, with some individuals spending up to 10 months in continuous flight between breeding seasons. Now let us explore one of the most visually spectacular phenomena in the bird world, the murmuration of starlings. On autumn and winter evenings across Europe and other parts of the world, enormous flocks of starlings gather before roosting and perform breathtaking aerial displays. Thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of birds fly in tight formation, swirling, expanding, contracting, and pulsing through the sky in fluid, organic shapes that seem almost choreographed. The flock moves as a single entity, with no apparent leader, changing direction instantaneously and avoiding collisions with astonishing precision. How do they do it? Research has shown that each starling in a murmuration follows a simple set of rules based on the movements of its nearest neighbors, typically the 7 closest birds. Each individual adjusts its speed, direction, and spacing to maintain alignment with these neighbors, and from these simple local interactions, the complex global behavior of the entire flock emerges. This is an example of what scientists call emergent behavior, complex patterns arising from simple rules applied at the individual level. The same mathematical principles govern the flocking of fish, the swarming of insects, and even the movement of crowds of humans. The murmuration is not just a spectacle. It is a living demonstration of one of the fundamental organizing principles of the natural world. The purpose of murmurations is still debated, but the most widely accepted explanation is that they serve as a defense against predators, particularly the sparrowhawk. A lone starling is vulnerable, but a tightly coordinated flock is extremely difficult for a predator to target. The swirling, ever-changing shape of the murmuration confuses the predator's ability to single out and track an individual bird, a phenomenon known as the confusion effect. The darker, denser the flock appears, the more effective this defense becomes. Let us consider now the relationship between birds and human culture, because birds have been entwined with human civilization for thousands of years. The chicken, descended from the red jungle fowl of Southeast Asia, is the most numerous bird on Earth, with an estimated global population of over 25 billion individuals at any given time, more than 3 chickens for every human being on the planet. Chickens were domesticated at least 8,000 years ago, initially not for food but for cockfighting, a blood sport that spread across Asia, the Middle East, and eventually the rest of the world. It was only later that chickens were bred primarily for meat and egg production, transforming them into the most economically important bird species in human history. The pigeon, specifically the rock dove, has also had a long and varied relationship with humanity. Pigeons were domesticated at least 5,000 years ago and have served as food, pets, religious symbols, and message carriers. The remarkable homing ability of pigeons, their capacity to find their way home from unfamiliar locations hundreds of kilometers away, made them invaluable as military messengers. During both World Wars, carrier pigeons delivered thousands of critical messages across enemy lines, and several were awarded medals for their service. The pigeon Cher Ami, serving with forces in France during World War I, delivered a message that saved nearly 200 soldiers despite being shot through the breast, blinded in one eye, and having a leg nearly severed by shrapnel. She was awarded the Croix de Guerre, and her body was later preserved and displayed in a museum. Falconry, the art of hunting with trained birds of prey, is one of the oldest sporting traditions in human history, with origins dating back at least 4,000 years in Central Asia and the Middle East. Falconry involves the capture, training, and flying of hawks, falcons, and eagles to pursue and catch wild game. The bond between a falconer and their bird is built on trust and mutual understanding, and the training process requires patience, skill, and deep knowledge of the bird's behavior and instincts. Falconry is still practiced today around the world and was recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity in 2010. The canary, a small finch originally from the Canary Islands off the northwest coast of Africa, became one of the most popular cage birds in Europe beginning in the 17th century. Canaries were prized for the male's melodious singing, and selective breeding over centuries produced a wide variety of colors, shapes, and song types. Canaries also played a crucial role in mining safety. Because of their high metabolic rate and sensitivity to toxic gases, canaries were taken into coal mines as early warning systems. If carbon monoxide or methane levels in the mine became dangerous, the canary would show signs of distress or die before the gas reached concentrations lethal to humans, giving miners time to evacuate. This practice continued into the late 20th century and gave rise to the well-known expression, canary in a coal mine, a metaphor for an early warning sign of danger. The relationship between birds and agriculture is equally significant. Many bird species are beneficial to farmers because they consume vast quantities of insect pests. A single barn swallow can eat up to 850 insects per day. A family of house wrens can devour over 500 spiders and caterpillars in a single afternoon of feeding their nestlings. Raptors such as barn owls and kestrels are natural pest controllers, consuming enormous numbers of rodents that would otherwise damage crops and stored grain. In many agricultural regions, farmers install nest boxes for barn owls as a biological alternative to chemical rodenticides. However, some bird species can be significant agricultural pests. The red-billed quelea of sub-Saharan Africa is considered the most destructive bird in the world in terms of crop damage. Flocks of quelias can number in the millions, sometimes tens of millions, and can strip a farmer's grain field bare in a matter of hours. Efforts to control quelea populations using explosives, poison, and aerial spraying have been ongoing for decades but have had limited success, in part because of the staggering reproductive capacity of the species. Let us circle back now to some more remarkable physical facts about birds. A bird's heart beats extraordinarily fast compared to a mammal's. A resting hummingbird's heart can beat over 600 times per minute, and during flight, this rate can exceed 1,200 beats per minute, 20 beats per second. This supercharged cardiovascular system is necessary to deliver oxygen and fuel to the bird's flight muscles at the enormous rates required for hovering flight. By contrast, a resting human heart beats about 60 to 100 times per minute. The body temperature of most birds runs higher than that of mammals, typically between 40 and 42 degrees Celsius, or roughly 104 to 108 degrees Fahrenheit. This elevated body temperature supports the high metabolic rates that power flight, but also means that birds must eat frequently to maintain their energy levels. A small songbird may need to consume the equivalent of 25 to 30% of its body weight in food every day. Hummingbirds, with their extreme metabolic demands, may consume more than their own body weight in nectar each day. To survive the energy deficit of nighttime when they cannot feed, some hummingbird species enter a state of torpor, a controlled reduction in body temperature and metabolic rate that is essentially a miniature hibernation. During torpor, a hummingbird's heart rate can drop from over 1,000 beats per minute to as few as 50, and its body temperature may fall to near ambient levels. This extraordinary physiological flexibility allows the bird to conserve precious energy reserves until morning, when it can resume feeding. The respiratory system of birds is fundamentally different from that of mammals and is arguably the most efficient breathing system of any vertebrate. Instead of the tidal in and out breathing pattern used by mammals, in which air flows into the lungs and then back out the same way, birds use a unidirectional flow-through system. Air passes through the lungs in one direction only, flowing through a series of air sacs that act as bellows, pumping air continuously through the lung tissue. This means that fresh, oxygen-rich air is flowing over the gas exchange surfaces of the lungs during both inhalation and exhalation. The result is a dramatically more efficient extraction of oxygen from each breath compared to the mammalian system. This respiratory efficiency is one reason why birds can fly at altitudes where mammals would quickly lose consciousness. Bar-headed geese migrate over the Himalayas at altitudes exceeding 8,000 meters, higher than the summit of Mount Everest, where the oxygen concentration is less than a third of what it is at sea level. Their super-efficient respiratory systems, combined with specialized hemoglobin that binds oxygen more tightly at low pressures, allow them to sustain powered flight in conditions that would incapacitate virtually any other animal. The digestive system of birds is also highly specialized. Because birds lack teeth, they cannot chew their food. Instead, many species swallow food whole and rely on a muscular organ called the gizzard to grind it up. The gizzard is essentially a biological grinding mill, with thick, muscular walls that contract rhythmically to crush food against small stones and grit that the bird has deliberately swallowed for this purpose. In seed-eating birds, the gizzard can exert enough pressure to crush hard seeds and even small pebbles. In some species, the gizzard is powerful enough to bend steel nails. The turkey's gizzard, for example, can crush walnuts still in their shells. Owls, which swallow their prey whole or in large chunks, produce pellets, compact, oblong masses of indigestible material such as bones, fur, feathers, and insect exoskeletons. After digesting the nutritious parts of their meal, the owl regurgitates the remaining material as a pellet, typically about twice a day. Owl pellets have become valuable tools for ecological research, because by dissecting a pellet and identifying the bones and other remains within it, Scientists can determine exactly what the owl has been eating, providing a detailed snapshot of the small mammal and bird populations in the owl's hunting territory. We have covered an enormous amount of ground in this first part of our exploration, from the dinosaur origins of birds to their feathers, bones, flight mechanics, migration, intelligence, song, senses, nests, eggs, physical adaptations, behaviors, longevity, sleep patterns, flocking behavior, cultural significance, and internal anatomy. But we have only scratched the surface. The world of birds is so vast, so varied, and so endlessly surprising that no matter how much you learn, there is always more to discover. In the second part of this documentary, we will continue our journey into even more astonishing territory. We will explore the bizarre mating dances of birds of paradise, the deadly hunting strategies of shrikes, the engineering genius of beaverbird dams, the mysterious phenomenon of bird navigation over open oceans, the heartbreaking stories of extinction, the hopeful tales of conservation success, and dozens more facts that will deepen your appreciation for these remarkable creatures. Birds are everywhere. They are on every continent, in every habitat, from the frozen wastes of Antarctica to the scorching deserts of the Sahara, from the depths of tropical rainforests to the peaks of the highest mountains. They are in our cities, our farms, our gardens, and our imaginations. They connect us to the wild world in ways that few other animals can, and the more we learn about them, the more we realize just how extraordinary they truly are. Welcome back. In the first part of our journey, we explored the ancient origins of birds, their extraordinary anatomy, their breathtaking feats of flight and migration, their surprising intelligence, their complex songs, and the many ways they have shaped and been shaped by the world around them. But we are far from finished. The story of birds is deeper, stranger, and more wonderful than any single telling could capture. So let us continue. We begin this second part with one of the most visually spectacular phenomena in the entire animal kingdom, the courtship displays of the birds of paradise. Found primarily in the rainforests of New Guinea and surrounding islands, the birds of paradise are a family of roughly 45 species that have evolved some of the most elaborate, extravagant, and frankly unbelievable mating displays ever documented. The males of these species are adorned with plumage of such outrageous color, shape, and complexity that when the first specimens were brought to Europe in the 16th century, many naturalists refused to believe they were real. Some early specimens arrived without legs. The indigenous traders who prepared the skins had removed them, leading to the myth that these birds lived permanently in the air, never touching the ground, feeding on dew and sunlight. This myth gave them their name, birds of paradise, creatures so beautiful they could only have come from heaven. The reality is no less astonishing than the myth. Consider the superb bird of paradise. The male of this species transforms himself during courtship into something that barely resembles a bird at all. He erects a cape of jet black feathers around his body, forming a perfect oval shape, and then spreads an electric blue breast shield that seems to float in the darkness of the cape like a glowing alien face. He bounces rhythmically in front of the female, clicking and snapping his feathers, his bright blue eye patches blinking like signal lights. Seen from the front, the displaying male looks less like a bird and more like a bouncing, pulsating geometric abstraction, a living piece of performance art designed by millions of years of sexual selection. The Wilson's bird of paradise, found only on 2 small islands off the coast of New Guinea, is no less extraordinary. The male has a bare blue head with a cross-shaped pattern of black feathers, a brilliant yellow cape, emerald green breast feathers, and 2 curling violet tail wires. Before displaying, the male meticulously clears a patch of forest floor, removing every leaf and twig to create a clean stage. He then performs an elaborate dance, flaring his cape, arching his back, and opening his mouth wide to reveal the startling lime green interior, a flash of unexpected color designed to captivate the watching female. The Riflebird, another member of the bird of paradise family, spreads his wings wide and curves them forward, creating a dark, velvety backdrop against which his iridescent throat and breast shimmer and flash. He sways from side to side, clapping his wings together above his head with audible snaps while the female watches from a nearby branch. If she is interested, she will approach and stand within the curve of his wings, and he will wrap them around her in a feathery embrace. The Vogelkop bowerbird, technically a bowerbird rather than a true bird of paradise, but equally remarkable, builds one of the most elaborate courtship structures of any bird. The male constructs a large, hut-like bower from sticks, with a neatly tended front lawn that he decorates with piles of carefully sorted objects, flowers arranged by color, berries grouped by size, beetle wing cases, mushrooms, and even deer droppings arranged in neat rows. Each male has his own aesthetic preferences, and neighboring males may have strikingly different decorating styles. Some prefer blue objects, others favor red or orange. When a female visits, the male performs a frantic dance, picking up objects and presenting them to her while singing a complex medley of sounds that includes mimicry of other bird species and even mechanical noises from the forest. The extravagance of these displays raises a fundamental question in evolutionary biology. Why? Why would natural selection produce such elaborate, energy-costly, and potentially dangerous ornaments and behaviors? The answer lies in sexual selection, a concept first articulated by Charles Darwin. In species where females choose their mates, males that are more attractive to females leave more offspring. Over many generations, female preferences drive the evolution of ever more extreme male ornaments, but the ornaments are not arbitrary. They are honest signals of male quality. A male bird of paradise that can grow and maintain spectacular plumage, clear and defend a display territory, and perform a complex dance routine without making mistakes is demonstrating that he is healthy, well-nourished, free of parasites, and genetically fit. The display is in essence a resume, a comprehensive advertisement of the male's suitability as a father for the female's offspring. The more demanding the display, the more reliable the information it conveys. From the dazzling to the brutal, let us now consider one of the most macabre behaviors in the bird world, the hunting strategy of the shrike. Shrikes are small to medium-sized passerine birds found across much of the world, and despite their modest size and pleasant appearance, they are ferocious predators. Shrikes feed on insects, lizards, small mammals, and even other birds, and they have earned the nickname butcher birds for a very good reason. After capturing prey, a shrike will impale it on a thorn, a barbed wire fence, or a sharp twig. The prey may be alive or dead when impaled. The shrike uses these natural skewers to hold the prey in place while it tears it apart with its hooked beak, which is not strong enough to hold large prey items unaided. But impaling prey serves another purpose as well. Male shrikes maintain larders, collections of impaled prey displayed conspicuously in their territories. A well-stocked larder signals to females that the male is a skilled hunter and that his territory is rich in food resources. Females preferentially mate with males that have larger larders, making this gruesome display a form of courtship advertising. Some researchers have also suggested that impaling certain toxic prey items, like monarch butterflies or lubber grasshoppers, and leaving them exposed to the sun for a day or two may help to break down the toxins before the shrike consumes them. The art of deception is well practiced in the bird world beyond the cuckoo we discussed earlier. The killdeer, a plover found across open habitats, is famous for its broken wing display. When a predator approaches the killdeer's nest, which is just a shallow scrape on the ground, the adult bird moves away from the nest, dragging one wing along the ground as if it were broken, calling plaintively and stumbling as though injured. This performance is utterly convincing. The predator, attracted by the prospect of an easy meal, follows the apparently injured bird away from the nest. Once the killdeer has led the predator a safe distance from its eggs or chicks, it suddenly recovers, takes flight, and circles back to its nest. This distraction display is an innate behavior performed instinctively, but it is remarkably effective against a wide range of predators including foxes, coyotes, dogs, and even humans. The zone-tailed hawk of the southwestern deserts and Central and South American forests practices a different kind of deception. This raptor closely resembles the turkey vulture in size, coloration, and flight style. It even flies among groups of turkey vultures, soaring on thermals with its wings held in the same distinctive dihedral angle. Turkey vultures are scavengers that pose no threat to living animals, and many potential prey species have learned to ignore them. The zone-tailed hawk exploits this complacency, hiding in plain sight among the vultures until it spots an opportunity to dive on an unsuspecting lizard, bird, or small mammal. This form of aggressive mimicry, resembling a harmless species in order to approach prey, is rare among birds and represents a sophisticated evolutionary strategy. Deception also plays a role in the behavior of the fork-tailed drongo of southern Africa, one of the avian world's most accomplished con artists. Drongos are intelligent, opportunistic birds that have learned to exploit the alarm call systems of other species. A drongo will perch near a group of meerkats or pied babblers that are foraging on the ground. When one of these animals finds a particularly large or desirable food item, the drongo gives a false alarm call, perfectly mimicking the alarm call of the target species or of another species that the target recognizes as a predator warning. The meerkats or babblers drop their food and flee for cover, and the drongo swoops down and steals the abandoned meal. What makes this behavior even more remarkable is that the drongo varies the types of false alarm calls it uses. If a target species stops responding to one type of alarm call, having learned to recognize it as false, the drongo switches to a different alarm call, cycling through its repertoire of mimicked calls to maintain the effectiveness of its deception. Research has documented individual drongos using up to 51 different alarm calls, including the calls of other species, to deceive their targets. Now let us consider some of the most extreme environments that birds inhabit, because the adaptability of birds to challenging conditions is nothing short of extraordinary. The emperor penguin breeds during the Antarctic winter, the coldest, darkest, most hostile season on the coldest, darkest, most hostile continent on Earth. After the female lays a single egg, she transfers it to the male and then departs for the open ocean to feed, a journey that may cover 100 kilometers or more across the sea ice. The male is left alone with the egg, which he balances on top of his feet and tucks beneath a fold of insulating skin called the brood pouch. For the next 65 days, more than 2 months, the male stands on the ice in total darkness, enduring temperatures that can plummet to minus 60 degrees Celsius and winds that can exceed 200 kilometers per hour. He does not eat during this entire period. He survives by burning through his fat reserves, losing up to 45% of his body weight. To conserve heat, the males huddle together in enormous groups, constantly rotating so that each bird takes a turn on the windswept outer edge before cycling back into the warm center of the huddle. When the chick finally hatches, the male feeds it with a secretion from his esophagus until the female returns from her fishing trip, plump and loaded with food for the chick. It is one of the most extreme examples of parental devotion in the animal kingdom. At the opposite thermal extreme, some birds thrive in the world's hottest deserts. The sandgrouse of Africa and Asia has evolved a remarkable method of delivering water to its chicks in arid environments. The male sandgrouse flies up to 30 kilometers to the nearest water source, wades into the water, and soaks his specially adapted breast feathers. These feathers have a unique microstructure with coiled inner barbules that can absorb and hold water like a sponge, retaining up to 25 milliliters of water. The male then flies back to the nest, and the chicks drink the water directly from his breast feathers. This behavior is performed daily, and the father may lose a significant portion of the water he carries to evaporation during the return flight, but enough reaches the chicks to sustain them in an environment where surface water is scarce or non-existent. The greater roadrunner, an iconic bird of the arid southwestern deserts, has its own set of adaptations for life in extreme heat. During cold desert nights, the roadrunner's body temperature drops and it becomes sluggish. In the morning, it turns its back to the rising sun and fluffs out the dark feathers between its shoulders, exposing a patch of dark skin that acts as a solar panel, absorbing heat rapidly and raising the bird's body temperature to its active level without the need to burn precious metabolic energy. This solar-powered warm-up strategy is an elegant and energy-efficient solution to the challenge of thermoregulation in a desert environment. The dipper, found along fast-flowing streams and rivers in Europe, Asia, and the western parts of the world, is the only songbird that can swim and walk underwater. Dippers plunge into frigid, turbulent streams and walk along the rocky bottom, using their wings to brace against the current while they flip over stones to find aquatic insect larvae, small fish, and crustaceans. Their feathers are extraordinarily dense and waterproof, and they have a large preen gland that produces copious amounts of oil for waterproofing. Their blood has a higher concentration of hemoglobin than that of most other songbirds, allowing them to store more oxygen for their underwater forays. A dipper can remain submerged for up to 30 seconds and can dive to depths of over a meter in rushing water. The ptarmigan, a grouse of Arctic and alpine environments, changes its plumage color with the seasons, a rare adaptation among birds. In summer, the ptarmigan wears mottled brown and gray plumage that camouflages it against the rocky, lichen-covered tundra. As autumn approaches, the brown feathers are gradually replaced by white ones, and by winter the bird is almost entirely white, rendering it nearly invisible against the snow. Even the ptarmigan's feet are feathered, functioning as natural snowshoes that provide insulation and traction on icy surfaces. This seasonal color change is driven by changes in daylight length, which trigger hormonal shifts controlling feather pigmentation. Let us now talk about one of the most emotionally charged topics in the story of birds, extinction. The history of bird extinction is a long and sorrowful chronicle of species lost forever, often through human actions. The most famous example is the dodo, a large, flightless bird that was endemic to the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. The dodo had evolved in isolation for millions of years on an island with no mammalian predators, and it had lost the ability to fly because flight was unnecessary in its predator-free environment. When Dutch sailors arrived on Mauritius in the late 16th century, they brought with them rats, pigs, monkeys, and other animals that raided dodo nests, eating eggs and chicks. The dodo itself, unafraid of humans due to its lack of experience with predators, was easily hunted. Within less than a century of first contact, the dodo was gone, extinct by approximately 1662. The dodo has become a universal symbol of extinction, a cautionary tale about the fragility of island species and the devastating impact of human colonization on naive ecosystems. The passenger pigeon is another iconic example of extinction driven by human activity. Once the most abundant bird on the continent, the passenger pigeon traveled in flocks so vast that they literally darkened the sky for hours as they passed overhead. The naturalist John James Audubon described a flock that he estimated contained over 1 billion birds, taking 3 days to pass. The total population at its peak may have numbered between 3 and 5 billion individuals, perhaps the most abundant bird species on Earth at the time. But the passenger pigeon was hunted relentlessly for food and sport. Commercial hunters killed them by the millions, shipping barrels of dead pigeons by rail to urban markets. Their nesting colonies were attacked with guns, nets, fire, and even dynamite. The combination of mass slaughter and habitat destruction, the vast deciduous forests that provided the pigeons with their primary food sources of acorns, beechnuts, and chestnuts were being cleared at a staggering rate, drove the population into a catastrophic decline. By the late 19th century, the once inconceivable abundance of the passenger pigeon had dwindled to a scattering of small, doomed flocks. The last known passenger pigeon, a female named Martha, died alone in her cage at the Cincinnati Zoo on September 1, 1914. She was 29 years old. Her species, which had once numbered in the billions, was gone. The extinction of the passenger pigeon remains one of the most dramatic and tragic examples of how quickly human exploitation can destroy even the most abundant species. The great auk, a large, flightless seabird of the North Atlantic, met a similar fate. Standing about 75 centimeters tall, the great auk was the original penguin. The name was first applied to this bird before being transferred to the superficially similar but unrelated birds of the southern hemisphere. Great auks were excellent swimmers and divers, but were helpless on land, where they were easily captured by humans. They were killed for their feathers, fat, meat, and eggs. As the population declined, the remaining birds became valuable to collectors, and the last known pair was killed on Elde Island off the coast of Iceland on June 3, 1844. The man who killed the last female reportedly strangled her, and his companion crushed the last egg under his boot. The great auk was gone. The Carolina parakeet, the only parrot species native to the eastern portion of the continent, was driven to extinction by a combination of habitat destruction, hunting, and the pet trade. The last known Carolina parakeet, a male named Incas, died at the Cincinnati Zoo on February 21, 1918, in the very same cage that had housed Martha, the last passenger pigeon, just 4 years earlier. That single cage in Cincinnati witnessed the final moments of two species, a coincidence that carries an almost unbearable symbolic weight. The story of the ivory-billed woodpecker is more ambiguous and more haunting. Once the largest woodpecker in its range, the ivory-billed woodpecker inhabited old-growth bottomland hardwood forests and was driven to the brink of extinction, and almost certainly beyond, by the wholesale logging of these forests in the 19th and early 20th centuries. The last widely accepted sighting occurred in Louisiana in 1944. Since then, there have been periodic reports of sightings, including a highly publicized claim in 2004 that the species had been rediscovered in the swamps of eastern Arkansas. But despite extensive searches, no definitive photographic or video evidence has been obtained, and in 2023, the species was officially proposed for delisting under the Endangered Species Act due to extinction. Whether a handful of ivory-billed woodpeckers still haunt some remote, unsearched swamp remains one of the great mysteries of ornithology, a ghost bird, forever hovering between hope and loss. Not all extinction stories end in tragedy. Some species have been brought back from the very edge of oblivion through determined conservation efforts. The California condor, with a wingspan of nearly 3 meters, is the largest flying land bird in the Western Hemisphere. By the mid-1980s, the wild population had been reduced to just 22 individuals, driven to near extinction by lead poisoning from ingested ammunition fragments in carrion, habitat loss, and eggshell thinning caused by the pesticide DDT. In a desperate and controversial decision, all remaining wild condors were captured and brought into captive breeding programs. Through meticulous breeding, rearing, and release efforts over the following decades, the population has slowly recovered. As of recent years, there are over 500 California condors, with more than 300 flying free in the wild. It remains one of the most expensive and intensive conservation programs ever undertaken, and the condor is still critically dependent on ongoing management, but the species has been pulled back from the brink. The Mauritius kestrel, a small falcon endemic to the island of Mauritius, the same island where the dodo perished, was reduced to just 4 known individuals in the wild in 1974, making it the rarest bird in the world at the time. Through captive breeding, habitat restoration, and predator control, the population has been painstakingly rebuilt to several hundred birds. The recovery of the Mauritius kestrel stands as one of the greatest achievements in the history of species conservation. The whooping crane, the tallest bird in its region, standing over 1.5 meters tall, was reduced to just 15 individuals in 1941. A captive breeding program was established, and young cranes were taught to migrate by following ultralight aircraft piloted by humans wearing crane costumes to prevent the birds from imprinting on human form. This extraordinary effort, combined with habitat protection and public education, has slowly increased the population to over 800 individuals. The whooping crane remains endangered, but its recovery represents a triumph of human ingenuity and dedication. The Chatham Island black robin of New Zealand holds a special place in conservation history. In 1980, the entire world population of the species consisted of just 5 birds, including only one breeding female, known as Old Blue. Through the tireless efforts of wildlife officer Don Merton and his team, who employed cross-fostering techniques, moving black robin eggs into the nests of a related species, the Chatham Island tomtit, to be raised as foster chicks, the population was gradually increased. Today there are over 300 Chatham Island black robins, and every single one of them is descended from Old Blue. It is a story of conservation at its most personal and most tenacious. Now let us explore some of the more unusual and lesser-known bird species that inhabit our planet. The kakapo of New Zealand is one of the most extraordinary birds alive today. It is the world's heaviest parrot, weighing up to 4 kilograms. It is the only flightless parrot. It is nocturnal. And it has a unique breeding system called a lek, in which males gather at traditional display sites and compete for the attention of females through an astonishing vocal performance. The male kakapo digs a series of shallow bowls in the ground, positioned along ridgelines to maximize sound transmission, and then inflates a thoracic air sac to produce a deep, resonant booming call that can be heard up to 5 kilometers away. He may boom for 8 hours straight every night for 3 to 4 months during the breeding season, losing up to half his body weight in the process. Females listen to the booming of multiple males and choose their mate based on the quality and persistence of his calls. The kakapo breeds only once every 2 to 5 years, triggered by the massed fruiting of certain native trees, making it one of the slowest reproducing birds on Earth. This slow reproduction, combined with its flightlessness and vulnerability to introduced predators like cats, rats, and stoats, drove the kakapo to the brink of extinction. By the mid-1990s, only 51 individuals remained. Intensive conservation management, including predator eradication on offshore island sanctuaries, supplementary feeding, artificial insemination, and 24-hour monitoring of nests, has gradually increased the population to over 250 birds. Every single kakapo alive today has a name and is individually monitored. It is one of the most closely managed species on Earth. The hoopoe, found across Europe, Asia, and Africa, is a strikingly beautiful bird with a distinctive pinkish-brown body, bold black and white striped wings, and a long fan-shaped crest that it raises when excited or alarmed. But the hoopoe has a less attractive habit. Its nest is famously foul-smelling. The female and nestlings produce a dark, foul-smelling secretion from a gland near the base of the tail, which they smear on their feathers and around the nest cavity. This secretion contains bacteria that produce antibiotics, protecting the eggs and chicks from harmful pathogens. It also deters predators with its powerful stench. The name hoopoe is onomatopoeic, derived from the bird's distinctive hoo-poo-poo call. The secretary bird of sub-Saharan Africa is one of the most unusual raptors in the world. Standing over a meter tall on long, crane-like legs, the secretary bird hunts on foot, stalking through grasslands and savanna in search of snakes, lizards, insects, and small mammals. When it encounters a snake, including venomous species like cobras and adders, the secretary bird dispatches it with powerful, stomping kicks delivered with tremendous force. Studies have measured the force of a secretary bird's kick at approximately 5 times its own body weight, delivered in a fraction of a second. The bird uses the scales on its legs as armor against snake bites, and its long legs keep its vital organs well above the striking range of most snakes. The potu, found in Central and South America, is a master of camouflage. During the day, the potu perches motionless on a broken tree stump or branch, stretching its body upward, closing its eyes to slits, and compressing its feathers to resemble an extension of the wood. Its mottled brown and gray plumage matches the bark so perfectly that the bird is virtually invisible, even at close range. The potu has special notches in its upper eyelids that allow it to see even when its eyes appear closed, enabling it to detect approaching predators while maintaining its camouflage. At night, the potu opens its enormous, light-gathering eyes and hunts flying insects, sallying out from its perch to snatch moths and beetles from the air before returning to its station. The magnificent Frigatebird has one of the most dramatic courtship displays of any seabird. The male inflates a brilliant red throat sac, called a gular pouch, to the size of a balloon, creating a vivid scarlet beacon visible from a great distance. He then spreads his wings, vibrates them, and throws his head back, calling loudly to attract the attention of females flying overhead. Groups of males display simultaneously, creating a surreal landscape of bobbing red balloons along the shoreline. Females circle overhead, evaluating the displays before landing next to a chosen male. The inflation of the gular pouch can take up to 20 minutes, and males maintain the display for hours at a time over a period of several weeks. The effort is immense, but the reward, the opportunity to mate and pass on his genes, justifies the investment. The harpy eagle of Central and South American tropical rainforests is one of the most powerful raptors on Earth. With legs as thick as a human wrist and talons the size of grizzly bear claws, the harpy eagle is capable of snatching monkeys, sloths, and other large prey from the canopy. Its rear talons can exert a crushing force of over 42 kilograms per square centimeter, making them among the most powerful gripping instruments in the avian world. Despite its formidable size, females can weigh up to 9 kilograms, with a wingspan approaching 2 meters. The harpy eagle is remarkably agile, threading through the dense forest canopy with surprising grace. It is an apex predator of the rainforest, occupying the same ecological role among the treetops that the tiger occupies on the forest floor. The common swift holds a record that still astonishes biologists. Young swifts, upon fledging from the nest, may not land again for 2 to 3 years, not until they are ready to breed for the first time. During this extended period of continuous flight, they eat, drink, sleep, and even mate on the wing. Swifts drink by skimming over the surface of bodies of water and scooping up mouthfuls without landing. They catch insects at high altitude, where aerial plankton, tiny insects, spiders, and other arthropods carried aloft by wind currents provides a reliable food source. They sleep during brief, high-altitude glides, shutting down parts of their brain in microsleep episodes. The common swift is, by any measure, one of the most aerial animals ever to have lived, a creature for whom the sky is not just a highway but a home. The flamingo's ability to stand on one leg for extended periods has long puzzled observers and scientists alike. Why do they do it? The most widely accepted explanation is thermoregulation. By tucking one leg up against the body, the flamingo reduces the amount of surface area exposed to cold water or air, minimizing heat loss. Since flamingos often feed in shallow, alkaline or saline lakes that can be surprisingly cold, especially at high altitudes, this simple postural adjustment can significantly reduce energy expenditure. Biomechanical studies have also revealed that the anatomy of a flamingo's leg includes a passive locking mechanism at the joints, allowing the bird to stand on one leg with essentially zero muscular effort. A flamingo standing on one leg is actually more stable and uses less energy than a flamingo standing on 2 legs. This counterintuitive finding was confirmed by studies showing that even dead flamingos can be balanced on one leg. The locking mechanism works without any active muscle engagement. Let us turn now to the fascinating world of avian intelligence once more, because the cognitive abilities of birds continue to yield surprises. The Clark's nutcracker, a corvid found in mountainous regions, has one of the most prodigious spatial memories of any animal. Each autumn, a single Clark's nutcracker harvests and caches up to 98,000 pine seeds in thousands of separate hiding places scattered across an area of hundreds of square kilometers. Over the following winter and spring, the bird retrieves these caches with remarkable accuracy, remembering the precise locations of thousands of individual hiding spots even when they are buried under snow. This spatial memory is supported by an enlarged hippocampus, the brain region associated with spatial memory and navigation relative to non-caching bird species. The Clark's nutcracker's memory is not just impressive for a bird, It rivals or exceeds the spatial memory capabilities of most mammals, including primates. Pigeons, often dismissed as simple city pests, have demonstrated remarkable cognitive abilities in laboratory settings. They can be trained to distinguish between the paintings of Monet and Picasso, categorizing new paintings by each artist that they have never seen before based on stylistic features. They can learn to recognize individual human faces and can distinguish between photographs of different people even when the photos are altered or presented from different angles. They understand the concept of time, can learn abstract rules such as same versus different, and have even been trained to detect cancerous tissue in medical imaging slides with accuracy rates comparable to trained human pathologists. The pigeon brain, while small, is densely packed with neurons and organized in ways that support sophisticated information processing, challenging the assumption that brain size is the primary determinant of intelligence. The Eurasian jay, another corvid, has demonstrated the ability to plan for the future, a cognitive capacity called mental time travel that was once considered uniquely human. In experiments, jays that were given the opportunity to cache food in locations where they knew they would be hungry the next morning, but not in locations where they knew food would already be available, preferentially cached food in the locations where it would be needed. This requires the bird to project itself forward in time, anticipate its future needs, and act in the present to address those anticipated needs. It is a form of forethought that challenges deep assumptions about the boundaries of animal cognition. The parrot family continues to provide remarkable examples of intelligence. Goffin's cockatoos, small white parrots from Indonesia, have been shown to manufacture and use tools in laboratory settings, even though they do not use tools in the wild. When presented with a food item visible behind a transparent barrier with a small opening, Goffin's cockatoos spontaneously broke off pieces of wood, shaped them into appropriate tools, and used them to rake the food within reach. They adjusted the size and shape of their tools to match the specific requirements of each task, and they even transported tools between locations in anticipation of future use. This capacity for innovation and flexible problem solving in a species that does not routinely use tools in nature suggests that the cognitive foundations for tool use may be widespread among intelligent birds, even if the behavior is not always expressed in the wild. The kea, a large parrot native to the alpine regions of New Zealand's South Island, is renowned for its curiosity, playfulness, and problem-solving abilities. Keas have been documented working collaboratively to solve complex puzzles, manipulating multi-step locking mechanisms, and even using their powerful curved bills to strip rubber from car windshield wipers and tear apart backpacks in search of food. Their intelligence, combined with their boldness and lack of fear of humans, has made them both beloved and notorious. The kea is one of the few parrot species adapted to cold, mountainous environments, and its ability to exploit novel food sources in a harsh landscape speaks to the adaptive value of intelligence in unpredictable environments. Let us now discuss a topic of immense ecological importance: the role of birds as seed dispersers and pollinators. Many plant species depend on birds to spread their seeds. When a bird eats a fruit, the seeds pass through its digestive tract intact and are deposited, along with a packet of fertilizer, in a new location far from the parent plant. This mutualistic relationship benefits both partners. The bird gets a meal, and the plant gets its seeds transported to new growing sites, reducing competition between parent and offspring. Some plant species have evolved fruits specifically designed to attract birds, brightly colored, rich in sugars, and positioned prominently on branches for easy access. In tropical forests, where a vast majority of tree species produce fleshy fruits, birds may be responsible for dispersing the seeds of up to 90% of tree species. The loss of frugivorous bird populations due to hunting or habitat destruction can therefore have cascading effects on forest composition and regeneration. leading to shifts in the tree species present and potentially altering the structure and function of entire ecosystems. Hummingbirds, sunbirds, and honeyeaters are among the most important avian pollinators. As they visit flowers to feed on nectar, pollen grains adhere to their heads, bills, and feathers, and are transferred to the next flower they visit, fertilizing it. Many plant species have evolved flowers with shapes, colors, and nectar compositions specifically tailored to attract particular bird pollinators. Bird-pollinated flowers tend to be tubular in shape, brightly colored in red or orange colors that are highly visible to birds but less attractive to bees, and produce copious, dilute nectar suited to the high energy demands of hovering flight. Some flowers and their bird pollinators have co-evolved so closely that neither can survive without the other. The extinction of a key pollinator can therefore doom the plants that depend on it, and vice versa. Birds also play crucial roles in controlling insect populations. Insectivorous birds consume staggering quantities of invertebrates. Recent research has estimated that the world's birds collectively eat between 400 and 500 million metric tons of insects per year, a quantity roughly equal to the total annual consumption of meat and fish by all of humanity. This predation pressure helps to regulate insect populations and suppress potential pest outbreaks. In agricultural landscapes, the presence of diverse bird communities has been shown to reduce crop damage by herbivorous insects, decrease the need for chemical pesticides, and improve yields. The economic value of pest control services provided by wild birds has been estimated at billions of dollars annually worldwide. Scavenger birds, particularly vultures, provide an ecosystem service that is equally vital but far less appreciated. By rapidly consuming carcasses, vultures prevent the buildup of rotting animal matter that could otherwise become a breeding ground for disease-causing bacteria and a source of water contamination. In regions where vulture populations have collapsed, most notably in South Asia, where 3 species of vulture declined by over 99% in just 2 decades due to poisoning by the veterinary drug diclofenac, the consequences have been severe. Feral dog populations exploded, feeding on the uncollected carcasses, leading to a dramatic increase in rabies cases. The economic and public health costs of the vulture decline in South Asia have been estimated at tens of billions of dollars. This ecological disaster illustrates, in the starkest possible terms, the hidden value of even the most unglamorous bird species. Let us now explore the remarkable world of flightless birds, a group that includes some of the most iconic and unusual species on Earth. Flightlessness has evolved independently in many different bird lineages, typically on islands or in other environments where the absence of mammalian predators reduced the selective pressure to maintain the costly ability of flight. The ratites, ostriches, emus, cassowaries, rheas, and kiwis are the largest group of flightless birds, and they are found on multiple continents, a distribution that reflects their ancient ancestry on the supercontinent Gondwana. The ostrich is the world's largest living bird, standing up to 2.7 meters tall and weighing up to 145 kilograms. It is far too heavy to fly, but it is an extraordinary runner, capable of reaching speeds of over 70 kilometers per hour and sustaining speeds of 50 kilometers per hour over long distances. The ostrich has only 2 toes on each foot, fewer than any other bird, and the larger of the 2 toes bears a formidable nail that can be used as a weapon. An ostrich kick can kill a lion. The ostrich's large eyes, the biggest of any land vertebrate, give it excellent vision across the flat, open landscapes it inhabits. The cassowary of New Guinea and northern Australia is often called the most dangerous bird in the world. Standing up to 1.8 meters tall and weighing up to 60 kilograms, the cassowary has a large, bony casque on top of its head, a helmet-like structure whose function is still debated but may play a role in sound production, thermoregulation, or simply pushing through dense vegetation. The cassowary's inner toe bears a dagger-like claw up to 12 centimeters long, which the bird can use with devastating effect when threatened. There are documented cases of cassowaries killing humans with slashing kicks. Despite their fearsome reputation, cassowaries are generally shy and reclusive, preferring to flee rather than fight. They play a vital ecological role as seed dispersers in the tropical rainforests they inhabit, consuming large fruits that few other animals can swallow and depositing the seeds in new locations throughout the forest. The penguin family represents perhaps the most extreme adaptation to a flightless, aquatic lifestyle of any bird group. Penguins cannot fly through the air, but they are superb swimmers, using their modified, flipper-like wings to fly underwater with remarkable speed and agility. The emperor penguin can dive to depths of over 500 meters, roughly 1,600 feet, and can hold its breath for over 20 minutes, making it the deepest diving bird on Earth. During these extreme dives, the penguin's heart rate slows dramatically, blood flow is redirected to essential organs, and the bird's muscles switch to anaerobic metabolism to conserve oxygen. The pressure at 500 meters is over 50 atmospheres, 50 times the pressure at the surface, yet the penguin's body withstands this crushing force without injury. The Galapagos penguin is the only penguin species found naturally north of the equator, a testament to the cooling influence of the Humboldt Current, which brings cold, nutrient-rich water up from the deep ocean along the western coast of South America and out to the Galapagos Islands. This small penguin has adapted to tropical conditions by panting, seeking shade, and spreading its flippers to radiate excess body heat. While we consider aquatic birds, the puffin deserves special attention. Atlantic puffins, with their colorful triangular bills and tuxedo-like plumage, are among the most recognizable seabirds in the world. During the breeding season, the puffin's bill becomes brilliantly colored in shades of orange, red, and yellow, adorned with ornamental plates and a fleshy rosette at the corner of the mouth. After the breeding season, these colorful structures are shed, and the bill becomes smaller and duller, one of the few examples of a bird that seasonally changes the size and shape of its bill. Puffins are remarkable underwater hunters, using their wings to propel themselves through the water in pursuit of small fish. A puffin can carry multiple fish crosswise in its bill simultaneously. The record is over 60 small sand eels held at once, thanks to a special hinge mechanism in the jaw and backward-pointing spines on the tongue and palate that hold fish in place while the bird catches additional ones. The world of bird courtship offers still more wonders beyond the birds of paradise. The greater sage grouse performs one of the most dramatic lek displays of any bird. Males gather at traditional display grounds called leks, where they inflate two large, yellowish air sacs on their chests, fan their spiky tail feathers, and strut in a stylized, ritualized walk while producing a bizarre sequence of sounds, swishing, popping, and whistling, created by the inflation and deflation of the air sacs. The popping sound is so distinctive and loud that it can be heard from a considerable distance. Females visit the lek, observe multiple males, and typically mate with just one or two of the most impressive performers. As a result, a small percentage of males at the lek father the vast majority of offspring, an extreme example of the reproductive inequality driven by female choice. The red-capped mannequin of Central and South American rainforests performs a moonwalk. Yes, a moonwalk. The tiny male bird perches on a horizontal branch and slides backward along it with smooth, gliding steps that create the illusion of effortless backward movement, remarkably similar to the famous dance move. This moonwalk is part of a complex courtship display that also includes rapid wing snaps, acrobatic leaps between branches, and buzzing calls. The display is performed at specific display sites that may be used by successive generations of males for years or even decades. The blue-footed booby of the Galapagos Islands and Pacific coast of Central and South America has a courtship display centered on, as the name suggests, its blue feet. Males with brighter, more vivid blue feet are preferred by females because foot color is an honest signal of health and nutritional condition. The blue coloration comes from carotenoid pigments obtained from the bird's fish diet, and a bird that is well fed and free of parasites will have brighter feet than one that is sick or malnourished. During courtship, the male performs an exaggerated high-stepping walk, lifting each foot and presenting it to the female with deliberate theatrical flair. He also brings the female gifts of nesting material, presenting them with elaborate bowing ceremonies. If the female is impressed, she responds with her own foot displaying walk, and the pair engage in a mutual display of reciprocal foot lifting that seals the bond. The elaborate tale of the male resplendent quetzal of Central American cloud forests has been revered by human cultures for thousands of years. The Aztec and Maya civilizations considered the quetzal sacred, associating it with the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl. The male quetzal's tail coverts, not actually tail feathers, but elongated upper tail coverts, can reach nearly a meter in length, streaming behind the bird in flight like iridescent green ribbons. It was said that killing a quetzal was punishable by death in some ancient Mesoamerican societies, though the birds were captured alive so that their feathers could be harvested and used in royal headdresses and ceremonial garments before the birds were released. Today, the resplendent quetzal remains a powerful cultural symbol, and it is the national bird of Guatemala, which also named its currency after the bird. The world's birds are more threatened today than at any time in recorded history. According to BirdLife International, approximately 1 in 8 bird species, over 1,400 species, is currently threatened with extinction. The primary drivers of this crisis are habitat destruction, particularly the clearing of tropical forests for agriculture, overexploitation through hunting and trapping, invasive species, especially rats, cats, and disease-carrying mosquitoes introduced to islands, pollution including pesticides, plastics, and oil spills, and climate change, which is altering habitats, disrupting migration timing, and shifting the ranges of both birds and the prey and plants they depend on. Climate change poses a particularly insidious threat because it operates on so many levels simultaneously. Rising temperatures are causing some bird species to shift their ranges poleward or to higher elevations, tracking the climatic conditions to which they are adapted. But not all species can move quickly enough, and some, particularly those adapted to mountaintop or Arctic environments, are running out of space. As temperatures rise, these species are pushed higher and higher up the mountain until there is nowhere left to go. The timing of spring events, leaf emergence, insect hatching, flower blooming, is shifting earlier in many regions, but not all migratory birds are adjusting their arrival times at the same rate. This mismatch between the timing of bird arrival and the peak availability of food can reduce breeding success and chick survival. In some European populations of pied flycatchers, for example, the birds are arriving on their breeding grounds after the peak of caterpillar abundance, resulting in fewer and smaller chicks. Window collisions are a surprisingly significant and largely invisible cause of bird mortality. Birds cannot perceive glass as a solid barrier, and they are attracted to reflections of sky and vegetation in windows, or to interior lights visible through glass, especially during nocturnal migration. Estimates suggest that between hundreds of millions and over 1 billion birds die annually from window collisions worldwide. Simple mitigation measures, applying decals or patterns to glass, using bird-friendly building designs, and turning off unnecessary lights during migration periods can dramatically reduce this toll. Domestic and feral cats are another major source of bird mortality. Studies have estimated that free-ranging cats kill billions of birds every year globally. In many regions, cats are the single largest direct source of human-caused bird mortality, exceeding even habitat destruction in terms of the sheer number of individual birds killed. The issue is a contentious one, intersecting with deeply held cultural attitudes about pet ownership, animal welfare, and the value of wildlife. Solutions include keeping cats indoors, using enclosed outdoor spaces called cachios, and implementing trap-neuter return programs for feral cat populations, though the effectiveness of these measures varies and the debate continues. Despite the many threats facing birds today, there are also powerful reasons for hope. The global birdwatching community has grown enormously in recent decades, creating a vast constituency of people who care deeply about birds and are willing to advocate for their conservation. Citizen science projects like eBird, the Christmas Bird Count, and the Great Backyard Bird Count have mobilized millions of volunteers worldwide to collect data on bird populations, providing scientists with an unprecedented wealth of information on bird distribution, abundance, and trends. This data is being used to identify priority conservation areas, track the impacts of climate change, and evaluate the effectiveness of conservation interventions. International agreements like the Convention on Migratory Species and the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands provide frameworks for cross-border cooperation in protecting migratory birds and the habitats they depend on. Habitat restoration projects, from the replanting of native forests to the rehabilitation of degraded wetlands, are creating new homes for threatened species. Invasive species eradication programs on islands have achieved remarkable successes, with the removal of rats, cats, and other introduced predators leading to rapid recovery of native bird populations on dozens of islands around the world. The story of the bald eagle is a powerful conservation success story. Once widespread and abundant, the bald eagle suffered catastrophic declines in the mid-20th century due to the widespread use of the pesticide DDT, which caused eggshell thinning and reproductive failure. By the early 1960s, the bald eagle had been reduced to fewer than 500 nesting pairs across the lower portions of its range. The banning of DDT in 1972, combined with legal protection and active conservation measures, allowed the population to recover dramatically. Today, there are over 70,000 nesting pairs, and the bald eagle was removed from the endangered species list in 2007. The recovery of the bald eagle demonstrates that when the causes of decline are identified and addressed, bird populations can rebound with remarkable resilience. As we near the end of our journey, let us pause to reflect on what birds mean to us as human beings, beyond their ecological roles and biological marvels. Birds have been central to human mythology, religion, art, and literature since the dawn of civilization. The ancient Egyptians worshipped the ibis-headed god Thoth and the falcon-headed god Horus. The Norse god Odin was accompanied by two ravens, Hugin and Munin, Thought and Memory, who flew across the world each day and returned to whisper what they had seen into his ears. The dove has served as a symbol of peace across many cultures for thousands of years. The phoenix, a mythical bird that dies in fire and is reborn from its own ashes, has been a symbol of renewal and immortality in cultures from ancient Egypt and Greece to China and Japan. In poetry and literature, birds have served as metaphors for freedom, transcendence, love, and loss. John Keats wrote his Ode to a Nightingale as a meditation on beauty and mortality, inspired by the song of a bird in his garden. Emily Dickinson wrote that hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. The albatross in Samuel Taylor Coleridge's The Rime of the Ancient Mariner became one of the most enduring symbols in all of English literature. A burden of guilt hung around the neck of a man who had thoughtlessly destroyed a creature of grace and beauty. Birds inspire us. They lift our eyes skyward. They remind us that the world is vast and full of wonders. A child's first encounter with a bird, watching a robin pull a worm from the lawn, hearing the honk of geese flying overhead in autumn, finding a discarded feather and running a thumb along its edge, is often one of the first moments of genuine wonder and connection with the natural world. That sense of wonder does not have to fade with age. It can grow, deepen, and become a lifelong source of joy and meaning. There are roughly 10,000 species of birds on Earth today. They range in size from the tiny bee hummingbird, weighing less than 2 grams, to the mighty ostrich at over 140 kilograms. They inhabit every continent, every ocean, and nearly every habitat type on the planet. They are found from sea level to the summits of the Himalayas, from the equatorial rainforests to the polar ice caps. They are among the most studied and best understood of all animal groups, yet they continue to surprise and challenge us with new discoveries. New species are still being described. Several new bird species are discovered or reclassified every year, often in remote tropical forests or isolated island chains. There is still so much to learn. As we close this documentary, consider this. Somewhere right now, a swift is sleeping on the wing at 30,000 feet, cradled by the jet stream. A hummingbird is hovering at a flower, its heart beating 1,200 times per minute. A penguin is diving 500 meters into the black, crushing depths of the Southern Ocean. An albatross is circumnavigating the globe, barely flapping its wings. A crow is solving a puzzle that would stump a 5-year-old child. A weaver is building a nest so intricate it would make an architect weep. A falcon is falling from the sky at 240 miles per hour. A tiny warbler is navigating by starlight across an ocean it has never seen. A mother bird is feeding her chicks, one beak at a time, in a nest hidden in the branches above your head. Birds are everywhere. They are woven into the fabric of our world ecologically, culturally, emotionally. They are ancient beyond our imagining and fragile beyond our reckoning. They ask nothing of us except the chance to exist, and in return they give us the sky. Listen, can you hear them singing?